So we've given you an outline of my talk, which I expect to take about 20 minutes. And now Emily is passing around a complimentary postcard. We want to thank you all for coming out tonight. We just had those made up a couple weeks ago. So my name is Richard D. Ambrisi, and I'm the tour guide here at the Hagerstown Train Hub Steam Engine 202. And my co-worker, Emily, is helping me out tonight. So the way things are going to go, 20-minute presentation, question and answer, then you're free to walk around the museum. The building will be open. We have a couple of accessory satellite displays you can go into, and we'll leave the museum and the grounds open for a half hour after the talk. So once again, thanks for coming. The topic is going to be the journey that I went on to redesign the interpretive materials here at the museum. So I was hired in August of 2019 as a tour guide, and after speaking with the people that hired me, we decided to expand the role into more of, let's take a look at the museum. They had some things they wanted to do to it, and we expanded the role to develop the visitor experience, improve the interpretation of the Western Maryland Railway history, and of course the history of the steam locomotive 202. So they saw in me, and a little bit about my background, that I had been 5 years at the B&O Railroad Museum Roundhouse in Baltimore, and then I had been 13 years at the B&O Ellicott City Station, which is the oldest surviving first railroad terminus in the United States. And then I had some other interpretive historical experience. I was at Sports Legends at Camden Yards for 5 years, and a few other stops along the way. So I tried to bring my previous experience and realized that this was an opportunity for me and for the city of Hagerstown to convert this site into something that we could all be proud of. So the first thing anyone does when they start a new job is to do a SWOT, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I did that with some visitors, the staff in the Parks and Recs division, some other people in the city government. And we came up with a list of the most requested improvements. And those items were rearrange the building inside based on themes. Hub City is a main theme here, which is the rail lines that converge from all points of the compass here in Hagerstown. So that's where the phrase Hub City comes from. Then there was an interest in more Western Maryland railway history. So we're looking at a time period from about 1852 to 1967 when it operated on its own. After 67, the mergers started, B&O, C&O, Chessie. We wanted to put some emphasis on the 202, of course, and we have a lot of tools in our collection. When the Roundhouse closed and they tore it down around 1987, they gave us a bunch of tools, and that was a good thing. They also gave us a lot of triplicates and quadruplicates. So one of the things we needed to do was to sort through the tools, remove duplicate and triplicate inventory. The next item on the most requested improvements was increase interpretive signage with historical information. And you'll see that when you go in the museum tonight, that I've got a lot of panels up in frames, 8.5 by 11, 8 by 10, that really talk about different aspects of the history of the Western Maryland Railroad. Then there were labels to identify the artifacts, and you'll see that also tonight. As you go around, you'll see everything that I could possibly label, I did. And then lastly, one of the other most requested items for an action plan was suggested tour routes. So I came up with a list of recommended tour stops inside the museum and then outside on the grounds. And that is still a work in process. When you go inside by the gift shop window, those suggested tour routes are there. We're still in the process of labeling the spots here outside. But if you wanted to take one of those with you, it would guide you around the site. So those were the most requested improvements. Then I also went around and made a list of things that we could also improve. And that was, of course, take an inventory of what we had, the condition of the buildings, and all the other materials on hand that we use to operate a museum. We inventoried the artifacts and displays and exhibits as I found them. And then working with the management staff in Parks and Recs, we formulated a plan for moving forward with the idea of utilizing all city resources, and then we partnered with some agencies around the city that I'm going to make note of towards the end of the talk. So I began a general site cleanup. We eliminated excess and unusable materials. We cleaned out closets. Just about anything you can think of is what I did to get things cleaned out. Then I realized that we had space in this gray building here, and there's a small shack building back in the corner that you'll see that's open. And once they were cleaned out, I created additional satellite exhibit space. When I talk about interpretive signage throughout the site, I need to keep in mind visitors of all ages, children, adolescents, and adults, of course. And I tried to do that when I created the interpretive signage. Some people like to hear things, go on a tour. Some people like to read. Others like to touch and do hands-on. So I tried to put those types of things into the displays. Another aspect that we're trying to develop is the rental opportunity here under the pavilion. So we have our unique railroad playset. We have our Tommy 202 tractor train. And this pavilion and the site is available for rental for meetings and birthday parties. So I created, with the help of the office staff, a rental brochure which is available at the gift shop window. And then, of course, it's the responsibility of an historian is to stabilize and protect. And that's what we're trying to do with the artifacts that we have. And we have a project coming to stabilize and protect the steam engine 202. We hope to add more digital technology where feasible. We added a internet smart TV that I'm going to tap into in the future so that I can run internet web-based railroad items of interest regarding the Western Maryland Railroad. And then lastly, this talk tonight is another example of trying to improve things. While I call them train talks, we're having another one next month where we're going to have the architect come out who's spearheading the project to stabilize the engine, and he's going to talk next month on August 27th. So where does one go in Hagerstown to learn about Western Maryland Railway history? Well, you've got your Western Maryland Reading Room at the Washington County Library, and they have a lot of books. There's the Western Maryland Railway Historical Society in Union Bridge, and they're dedicated to everything Western Maryland Railway. That's a good spot. The Maryland Historical Society has a nice cataloging index on their website for Western Maryland Railroad related items. And of course, here in town, the Roundhouse Museum on Burhans Avenue has an outstanding Spitzer library. And they have a number of good books and a lot of displays dedicated to the Western Maryland Railway. So, we've done the assessment. I've been meeting with people from the city and the Parks and Recs division. We decided what we wanted to do, And from my experience, I knew the next thing that we needed was an interpretive plan. And the interpretive process is one by which we describe, analyze, and evaluate past events. It needs to be age appropriate so that the visitor experience stimulates further exploration. It must adapt to the level of interest and time investment that the visitor has. Some people come in for a quick walkthrough, others want to spend more time, others are interested in walking on their own, others might want a guided tour. So we've tried to make it flexible and tailor the many needs of the type of visitor that comes in. What are we looking for in the end? What's our goal? Positive outcomes, a value for the fee, possibly a return visit another time, referrals, and rentals. So those are our goals. So we have two major themes that I've been developing and working on. One, of course, is the history of the Western Maryland Railway and the impact of railroading in Hagerstown, Maryland. And that's where I want to point out this book that's published by the Maryland Historic Press. And it's called Railroad Ties, Industry and Culture in Hagerstown, Maryland, by Susan Levitas. And she does a good job of not only talking about the history of railroading in Hagerstown, but talking about the social and economic impact that the railroad had on this community. And it was dramatic. This book is available for sale in the gift shop if you're interested. But she talks about everything from not only the employees of the railroad, but the wives and the family structure at home, the children, how they got involved with railroad games, how the Brotherhood of Railroad and the organizations were formed to support the railroad employees. So that is an important aspect of this museum and of the impact of railroading in Hagerstown. Now, when we talk about children, I kind of broke them down into age groups. Approximately 3 to 7, 8 to 12, 13 to 18, and then adults. So we have available, when we open on the 17th, a wooden train play table that we're going to set up in the center of the room inside. And we're still operating now under the pandemic guidelines, so we have to be careful with hands-on activities. But we hope to, at some point this year, get that table out. We also purchased a railroad-themed button-making machine, where with included in each admission, the child will be able to make a 2.5-inch diameter pin-back button to take as a souvenir. The children always like the 202, I've mentioned that already. We take that out on special events and birthday rentals. We drive through the gate, out around the ball field. It's about a 20-minute ride. There's a couple of bells in the passenger compartments that the children can ring. So those were some of the thoughts that I had and things that we implemented to give children an activity while they were here. We've already talked about the tour sequence that works not only for visitors as they come in, but it works for Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts who are earning merit badges, and it works for school trips. And coming from an educator background, we use the lesson plan philosophy, where if I talk with an instructor, I can develop a lesson plan based on what they want the children to experience during their visit. So, a moment now about the 202, which is the hallmark of our site here. Donated to the children of Hagerstown, 1953. Passenger service, purchased in 1912. steam. There's a system of wheel arrangements. 462 is the wheel arrangement. Originally coal burning, around 1947, converted to oil burning. You're welcome to go up into the cab. So our vision for that is to build a new protective shield that has lighting, security, and allows people to get up close to the engine. And then we're going to do cosmetic restoration. This machine is not going to run, but it is going to be cosmetically improved and preserved, as I had said earlier. That's one of our missions, stabilize and preservation. And as I had said earlier, on August 27, we'll have an architect come out and give you more details on how that's going to progress. So, that leaves us with marketing and promotion, which is why you're here today. We put out communications in our seasonal park and rec guide. You can pick up a copy of that in the museum. We participate in Facebook, of course, and we're going to be getting an email campaign here in the near future to keep in touch with people. That's one thing that Parks and Recs does very well, and it has the skills and the staff and the tools, and that's to communicate the many activities that they run. They always have something going on in normal, non-pandemic times. There's always something going on in Parks and Recs at Hagerstown, and they really know how to communicate out and promote those activities. So, moving forward, and we're getting towards the conclusion here. We've got more work to do. We want to take it to the next level. We want to communicate out and extend our reach, as I call it. We want to get in those publications that do tourism and travel, railroad, trip type directories. We want to expand our website placement to other museums and historical societies. Those would be two examples of how we want to expand our outreach. Now, we had a lot of things that had to be built, moved, fabricated, and painted, and that's where Mark Haddock and Scott Smoot from our facilities team helped out considerably. Engineering, all cities have an engineer. Our engineer, Rodney Tissue, has been spearheading the 202 restoration and is always available to guide us with standards and safety procedures. Down at the Hager House, we have Kay Osmer. She's a curator down there. She gave me a preliminary plan that she was working on until this vacancy was filled. So I had a good starting point from Kay Osmer, and she's a curator by trade and was able to give valuable input. We had support from the Parks and Recreation Office, which I've already mentioned, Amy Riley, Emily Conrad, Cassie Hirschberger, and Kathy Beach, The city has a media and communications office. They've already done one DVD for us, a very short promotional DVD that we're going to be releasing here sometime over the summer. So we want to thank Wes Decker and Eric Hastings. We have other part-time employees that come out and help, and in the past we had a fellow named Chandler Fishak, and he came out and participated in our brief promotional DVD. We also had a Terry McGarity, who was a prior tour guide here. She gave me some assistance. We have Mac Gross, who works at the pool, the golf course, and here. And we've just hired a seasonal young man named Dakota Harrison. So we have other part-time employees that help out. We'd like to expand our season and the hours. You know, I envision someday having a Santa Claus arriving by train and greeting the children. I'd like to see also developed living history activities. This steam locomotive and passenger cars carried troops in World War I and World War II. So there's opportunity there to do demonstrations and living history activity. We have other partners in the community, the Convention and Visitors Bureau. From the Roundhouse, we have Gerald and Jan Smith. We work with them every year on a regular basis to do our Railroad Heritage Days. We're in contact with the Norfolk Southern, and they run across this line here. This line here has a little siding on it. They can go straight through, they can pause waiting on schedules, or they can do some car staging and switching here. So we get a lot of activity with Norfolk Southern. We're in talks with them to try to develop a partnership. When I talk about reaching out and servicing the community, we have solicited and given business to, in a way, some of our community partners. And they are Kelly Redmond at Anything Printed, Tracy Carr at TMG Studios, Terry Lynn at New View Creative, and Kevin Neer at Profit and Associates Architects. And last but not least, I would be remiss if I did not mention that we have presented to and remain in constant communication with the mayor and city council, because ultimately in the end we all answer to them, and we like to keep them informed on how we're developing this valuable resource here in Hagerstown. So that concludes my talk. We've made considerable progress. I hope I've given you an idea of what my journey was like. Feel free to walk around, go in the museum, visit the other buildings. I want to thank you for coming out tonight, and most importantly, please come back again and come back often. Thank you.